For cheap D2R items, visit aoeah.com. You get 3% off with the code ARIAD. Check the link in the description. Hello and welcome everybody. In this video, I've got something very special for you. We will look at the 3 most useless builds in Diablo 2 and try to make them playable. Afterwards there will be a competition to see who does the worst. I have a feeling this could be fun, so let's get started. The builds all have to be based on an attack skill, so it doesn't count if I build a character that only has defensive and passive skills and uses basic attacks. We want to use the most unplayable attack skills here. I wouldn't consider the Assassin's Blade Shield to be an attack skill in that sense either. I've also built some really bad barbs and Amazons, but compared to my top 3, they ended up being stronger than expected. Let's start with the Sorceress. Here we want to use Inferno. Because I had skill points left, I also took Blaze. As you can see, I gave the Sorceress some high-end gear. Inferno really sucks, even though the damage isn't bad at all. The flame is very slow, but reaches a considerable distance at high skill level. The playstyle is extremely tedious. Fortunately, Blaze helps a little, but can that save the Sorceress from an absolute disaster? Let's take a look at the Druid, who has a similar problem. Here I've chosen Arctic Blast, which is more or less the same as Inferno but in blue. The Dudu also got some top gear. Arctic Blast is just as bad, especially if you look at Hurricane or Tornado in comparison. I've included them here, but of course I won't use them for the challenge. But the Twisters are allowed as a secondary skill. They hardly do any damage, but stun their targets. So which will come off worse? Inferno plus Blaze, or Arctic Blast and Twisters? Or will the third candidate win the crown of shame? Here we have a Paladin, and he's playing with Vengeance and Conversion. After all, he got a Grief and other nice adds. Vengeance is really bad. We only hit single targets, and we don't strike as fast as with Smite or Zeal. But maybe Conversion is the ultimate secret weapon that saves the Paladin from disgrace. Now for the challenge. The characters get 3 tasks. It starts with Eldritch and Shank, which should actually be quite easy. Then continue with the High Council in Travincal. That's a bit more demanding, but with high-end gear and maximum resistances, it shouldn't be too bad. It's all just players 1. The most challenging task at the end is a fast Dia run, so porting directly to the seals and open them, kill the bosses and then Diablo. If you want, you can now place your bets in the comments. Write what you think who will do best or worst. Let's start with the Sorceress. In the Frigid Highlands, her work actually looks pretty nice. Inferno's damage isn't that bad, just the handling is annoying. Travincal is a bit tedious. The flame is far too slow and the monsters just move too fast. I also get cursed all the time and have to be really careful. But with a lot of teleporting and the help of Blaze, all the monsters are down in the end. That really sucked. I don't feel like I ever want to repeat this. In the Chaos Sanctuary, the sorceress at least shines with her high teleport speed. She also does quite well against the first seal boss, but the specters don't have many life points. I had to play very carefully at Diablo, cause the fanatic knights would just smack me away. So I first cleared some space, even though it costs time. For the Lord and his minions, I was able to use the range of the attack to defeat them quite safe and easy. I was most afraid of messing up with the last seal, so I cleared a corner and casted a lot of Blaze as preparation, to be on the safe side.
I am overburdened.
And the time I've spent was really worth it. After spawning, the monsters just went up in smoke. I don't even want to know what the whole thing would have looked like if I had only worked with a flamethrower here.
Not even death can save you from me.
I ended up using the same method on Diablo, and he also melted away like nothing. That wasn't too bad after all. Still, I don't think any of you wants to play an Inferno Sorceress next season. To add some variety, here's the Paladin. The Highlands is of course no big deal for him either. The Paladin has a great advantage that he is very tanky and hardly needs to pay attention. In Travinkal, however, he gets into trouble because the monsters keep healing each other and his damage is a bit too low to counteract this. But with conversion I finally get a few monsters on my side and can solve the situation. The Paladin shines again with his stability and the conversion skill turns out to be extremely useful. At least in the context of the situation. In the Chaos Sanctuary, I noticed the lame teleport speed and that he runs out of mana quickly. But well, if playing seriously, you'd have an inside mercenary with you. The ghosts are defeated very quickly, and at Lord Desires I converted his minions, who then fought each other, so I was able to concentrate on the Lord himself. Unfortunately, there's a problem with the Dragon Lords. The map is just too full and the Paladin isn't tanky enough to survive it in the long run, especially because the Night Mages keep cursing him. It's very difficult to get the boss into focus, it's really a nightmare. In the end, however, I was able to rectify the situation thanks to conversion again, because everything looks much better when not all the enemies are just pouncing on the Paladin.
death can save you from me.
A few monsters were still on my side when Diablo spawned and then turned hostile again. It's rare to see Dragon Lords supporting Diablo in battle. All in all, the Paladin did quite well too. We'll compare times at the end. But first the Druid. This is where real misery begins. Even in the Highlands, he performs much worse than his competitors. The Arctic Blast damage sucks. Here I realized that it was going to be very tedious. In Travinkal, the fight in the temple is too tricky, so I have to take out the monsters one by one outside, which of course takes a long time. It's difficult to bring calm to the situation, because the monsters are so fast and don't really get hit by the lame attack. A lot of damage just goes by. I doubted whether I would even make it, and in the end, Travinkal alone took almost as long as the entire run on Sorceress or Paladin. Of course, the Chaos Sanctuary is also a real pain with the doo-doo, which confirms what I've been thinking all along. This build is the biggest piece of crap I've ever played. Arctic Blast is not only lame, but also does far too little damage, despite the high-end gear. And the Twisters are actually only a very weak consolation in this messy situation. The Sorceress did much better, her attacks do a lot more damage. So Arctic Blast is definitely the worst skill in this competition, completely useless even for a fun build. There was definitely no fun at all. While Paladin and Sorceress had to go back to town to get new pots only once each during the Chaos run, the Druid already had to get supplies during the fight against the High Council. And in the Chaos Sanctuary, he was forced to flee into town 3 times. A Hurricane Tornado Druid on the other hand would simply fly through in 1 or 2 minutes and even kill 90% of the monsters along the way. So it's obvious that the Druid has lost, but who was better, the Sorceress or the Paladin? Well, it was indeed a close race, but the Sorceress won by half a minute. She completed the whole run in 5 minutes and 55 seconds, the Paladin in 6:32. The Druid took me 17 minutes and 12 seconds. Of course, you could argue if the massive use of Blaze on the Sorceress was legit, but the other way around, without conversion the Paladin would have taken much longer too, and the situation in the Chaos Sanctuary might even have been too much for him. In any case, it was interesting to make the best out of such bad conditions, and I hope it entertained you a little. Have a nice weekend, take care, and may the loot be with you.
Follow me. Come on. Thanks.